I'd like to call this meeting of the Merrimack School District Budget Committee to order. I ask that you all please rise and join our newest principal, Mrs. Putney, in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all and good evening. My name is Stan Heinrich. I am the chair of the School District Budget Committee. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. We've got some members out tonight who are excused, and we're going to have one member on the phone. But I had to wait till I had 7 of you here before I could call the meeting to order. We're going to be reviewing the school budgets tonight. We're not going to be taking any votes on anything on the budgets, reviewing, asking questions, getting answers. Then we'll be doing minutes for the last 2 meetings, and then we will go on from there. Sit back and relax. I got to get Carol on the phone, because once she's on the phone, if we take any votes on anything, it has to be done by a roll call vote, and that's per the RSAs of the state of New Hampshire. So hold on for a second while I can try to get her on the phone.
Yep.
I got to go through the question and answer session before we get started with you.
Yep.
Your name is Carol Lang, correct?
Last time I checked,
Okay. And where are you currently?
Satellite Beach, Florida.
And is there anybody in the room with you?
Just the cat, Ginger.
Okay, same as it has been. Welcome,
Yep.
Welcome aboard. We're going to be starting budget reviews in a sec. So, and if you got to chime in for something, just let me know.
Okay.
At this time, I would like to welcome the elementary school leadership team up to the table, please. And Matt, do you need to come up at all to talk about any cuts or additions or anything? Nope, okay. Well, good evening. If you would be kind enough to introduce everybody at the table, including yourself.
Perfect. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Yarlott, principal of Reed's Ferry School. And to the right of me is Julie DeLuca, assistant principal at Thornton's Ferry School, and Alicia Hanson-Prue, assistant principal at Mastrocola Elementary School. To the left of me, Rachel Schneider, assistant principal at Reed's Ferry School, and to her left, Michelle Romaine, principal at Mastrocola Elementary School.
And Bridie Belmore is not here this evening. She's not feeling well. I would like the Budget Committee to introduce themselves. Lee, you want to start off, please? Please make sure to you got to put the mic on.
Good evening, I'm Lee French.
Hi, I'm Gillian Savage.
Hi, Jordan Gualyumi.
me.
Hi, Kevin Bobbitt.
David Ilg.
I already announced my name, Stan Heinrich.
Brian Stisser.
Carol, would you please introduce yourself? We lost the phone call. Okay. I'm going to try one more time, and hopefully we won't lose the phone call. Oh, this thing just kicked out. No, it says phone not registered. All right. Pat, can you send Carol a text and just tell her we're having some sort of phone problems? I'll try and contact her if this thing reconnects. The liaisons for the elementary school, David Ilg, Gillian Savage, Lee French, and Naomi Schoenfeld. I also would point out that Naomi Schoenfeld is excused this evening, and her alternate could not be here either. And Amanda Heidberger is excused this evening, along with Shelley Jacoby, and Mackenzie Murphy is excused also. She is stuck on an airplane in Logan Airport. Okay, we'll try it one more time. I haven't, no, I know what happened. I didn't let it get a dial tone. The joys of technology.
I see, okay.
Okay, would you like your liaison team to start off first, or would you guys like to start off first? What's your pleasure?
We've passed the coin to Mr. Ilg, so please
Okay,
feel free to
David.
start off.
You're up.
All right, so we met with the elementary principals last Friday, Jillian, Lee, and I, and Naomi. So we went over the budget. The budget's very much in line with what we've seen year in, year out. Nothing jumps out. There's a couple new things. So one of the new line items is social emotional learning skills classroom kit. It's in support of the district's mental health initiative. That's on all three budgets. Also on all three budgets is a new assembly line for curriculum-based assemblies for the kindergartens. I'll let the principal speak a little bit more to that. And then, again, it's just some money set aside for replacement of worn-out furniture. We did see the furniture at Reed's Ferry. It is definitely worn out, so I imagine all 3 schools are in need of it. Would you say 50 years old, some of it? So it's time for some of it to be replaced. But specifically to the social emotional and the assembly line, could you speak a little bit more to that?
Sure. Hi, Carol. It's Kimberly Yarlott. As you know from last year, full-day kindergarten was on a warrant article, and so we clearly hadn't budgeted for any kind of field trips or assemblies, because that would be getting ahead of the game. So this year, looking at next year's proposal, we really wanted to spend some really good quality time talking about what would be developmentally and age-appropriate field trip. If not a field trip, then what, going forward in the future after next year, we really just compromised and said, let's do assemblies and bring somebody, in other words, a field trip into the school as opposed to putting little 5-year-olds on the bus. So that was the revitalization of the assembly count line. And we're looking into what that assembly might be, but it will definitely be hands-on and integrated into the content and appropriate for kindergarten learning. And in terms of the addition of the SES emotional learning program kits, that is, again, part of the mental health initiative, and it's to provide classroom teachers each with a kit, teacher manual, and any student items that would go along with that based on the decided or chosen program that we go with. And so that's where that line item stands.
Gillian or Lee, would you folks like to add anything to what David was talking about, or anything else on that subject?
I don't have anything at this time.
Make sure to speak into the microphone and that the green light's on.
I don't have anything at this time.
Neither do I.
Okay. David, do you have more, or you're all set?
No, just want to say thank you for seeing us and showing us around the school. So it's always a pleasure doing these liaisons, so it's nice. It's one of the better benefits of being on the budget committee, so.
Okay, ladies, now it's your turn.
So we presented to our budget committee for your review pretty much a very closely bottom line with no additions, with the exception of the assembly line item and the social emotional curriculum. We all have furniture replacement in our budgets, which is an ongoing initiative for us to really look at what our needs are in the classroom. We're almost done with all the tables, the desks and chairs, and moving on to tables and things like book club, cases and coat closets as a next item, and those are what we refer to as quite dated. Reeds Ferry School and Thorntons Ferry are celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, so some of those are original furniture items. And everything that we have proposed is aligned to the Merrimack School District logic model, and focusing on the competencies in mathematics and literacy, numeracy, and social emotional well-being. And I don't think you'll find any surprises within the budget. Do you want to add anything?
Kevin?
So, thanks for presenting all that. I have a question specific to the social emotional learning skills. It sounds like you're evaluating various programs, but can you speak to what those would cover specifically, even if you haven't finalized which program you're going with, but what is the aim of that, I guess?
So I can speak to that as one of the co-leaders of the district mental health group, in that we presented actually several years ago about some of the work we're undertaking, and we're now in year 4 of implementation. So what we're presenting as part of our allocation for the budget is some tier 1 instruction, very similar to what we have for reading and writing and math, and that teachers will teach explicit skills in social and emotional learning. It's based on a CASEL framework, so just like we have reading and writing standards, we also have standards for social and emotional learning. And there will be the skills that students will learn will help students become career and college ready, and decision-making, how to work out problems, solve conflicts, how to identify your feelings and self-regulate. And again, this would be for K to 5 at this point. And for, with this, we will have all kids K to 5 receive the same and consistent instruction across all buildings for social and emotional skills and development.
Questions or comments from any other members of the Budget Committee? On the cut lists of things, was there anything that was on the cut list that has been restored, or that you feel should be restored?
So we really work cooperatively with one another as a leadership team, and we also work cooperatively with the Budget Committee and the school board. And talks of such have occurred between the school board and Superintendent Mrs. Chaffrey, and as well as Matt Chevanel and Mark McLaughlin. And so at this point, we feel very, very comfortable with the budget, and including proposed cuts and including add-ins that were once proposed cuts and have been restored. So we really feel that we're in good shape, and we appreciate sort of the collaborative response and efforts towards making it a doable budget with the bottom line for voters.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Matt? Does anybody from administration have anything they want to add? Okay. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, and thank you to our team. It was great to have you visit the school.
Next up on the list is the Mastrocola Upper Elementary School. I ask Marcia McGill and her assistant, if you have one with you tonight. You're going solo tonight. I do need to announce a couple of things regarding your budget. It has to do with the liaisons. As I said earlier, the members of your team, for various reasons, are excused this evening. I do have an email from Shelley, who was the liaison team leader, who is in California, and what she wanted me to pass on to everybody was that there is a decline in field trips due to Enterprise City no longer being in business. Replacement of tables for the cafeteria is a multi-year project. Replacement of science room chairs to stools is a multi-year project. And said that Marcia would be filling us in on the other things. So you don't unfortunately get a choice as to which one goes first.
That's right.
You're it.
Okay, thank you. As in the past, our 2019-2020 budget proposal for the upper elementary school continues to reflect priorities established by the Merrimack School District Logics model. We maintain the areas of literacy, numeracy, technology, and school climate. So in our budget this year, the significant factors include the purchase of texts and instructional materials and resources for a variety of reading levels to implement our literacy instruction in grades 5 and 6, as well as the resources and materials to reinforce writing across the curriculum. We also continue to purchase materials and implement a standards-based math program for grades 5 and 6. This includes instructional resources for the classroom, as well as any consumable items that would be needed. We also are working, as Mr. Heinrich said, replacement of tables in our cafeteria. It is a multi-year project. We're in year 4 of a 12-year project. Also, we're continuing to replace science stools with chairs, and that's a 6-year project, and we're in year 3 of that. New to our budget this year is the purchase of materials and resources to implement the social and emotional learning curriculum for grade 5. So those would be the highlights in our budget. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Kevin Bobbitt.
Hello.
Hi.
Question in terms of Enterprise City. I have 2 boys that went through the school district, one's still in the district, but both of them went on that trip, and I suspect if you asked either of them what was the most memorable field trip they took, and that was probably it. And from my perspective, it seemed pretty relevant and really a worthwhile thing. And it's very unique, so you can't just kind of do it someplace else. But is there any investigation going into, does anybody else do it anywhere else, or is that it? We're out of luck?
That's it. It's the only one we have within the area
Yeah.
that we'd moved. They had also opened a facility years ago in Rhode Island. I think it was the same company, but I'm not sure if that's continues to be open, but that would not be a distance that we could travel. But we have replaced that field trip with an in-house field trip that's called Career Day.
Okay, so similar themes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions for Mrs. McGill? Yes, Lee.
For those of us that are new, can you explain what it was that is no longer?
Enterprise City was a small city, and it was in a large room, say like this, and it had about 14 to 16 small little businesses that ran anything from a wellness center to an electrical company to a newspaper to a radio station to a snack bar, and students would start 6 to 8 weeks ahead of time, would start to prepare and learn the curriculum, learn about all these different businesses, what are all the, jobs and requirements, what's all the accounting that goes along with that, and then they would travel at the end of their learning to Enterprise City and actually live the day running their job. So if they're in the newspaper, they're writing articles, they're trying to sell advertisement. They're in the radio station, they're selecting music, and they're taking, recommendations from the crowd. There's a mayor, there are police officers, a lot of different jobs within the city. Kids who work in the snack bar, kids who are assembling small crafts in the nature shop, for example. In the wellness center, they'd be there in case they need to give a Band-Aid, say, or something. The people that work for the electric company, they'd put on their hats and they'd go out and they'd read the meters and they'd send bills for that day that they use that electricity. So they were really running a city and understanding what does it cost to run a business, what do I get paid for it, what do I have to expend out, for my business, and what does it really look like to be pretty much an adult and live every day.
Thank you.
Carol, do you have any questions? All right. Nope. Cut out again. I'm done with it for the night. Carol was not on the phone anymore. I've tried again. It just keeps cutting out. There's something going on with the electronics here at the school. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Keep up doing the good work.
Thank you.
You get to leave early.
Thank you. Good night.
Apologize for the delay. Our telephone electronics seem to be giving us somewhat of a hard time. Matt has graciously tried rebooting this, and we'll see if that makes it any better. It's rebooting now, it's shut off and everything else.
We've always used this cable jack over here, we've never used that one.
Oh, what'd you do, just switch it?
No, I didn't switch it yet, I just tried unplugging it so it could register again.
Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum. Yeah. I think we'll continue. We're going to continue on. If I can get this thing working again, I'll get Carol back on the line. It's doing the same thing. We are now going to go to the middle school. Adam Carger is the principal. You're coming up solo too, right? Liaisons were Kevin Bobbitt, the leader, Jordan, and Shelley. Would you like to go first, or would you like your liaison leader to go first?
I would defer to our liaison leader.
Okay. Kevin, it's all yours.
Thank you. So we met, I think it was last week, maybe it was the week before, I lost track of time, but we had a good meeting at the middle school. I think the budget, we agreed, was pretty straightforward and fairly similar to last year, with just a couple of notable changes or additions. More tables. That's a theme with all the schools as they get older. Even though the middle school is our newest school, as we talked, I mean, the middle school is 12 years old, 13 years old?
I believe actually it's going into, this is the 15th school year.
15th? Yeah. Okay, so anyway, things still wear out. They don't, not everything lasts 50 years like at Reed's Ferry, but some of the tables are wearing out. So there's some replacements in there. One of the bigger things in the budget, in addition, excuse me, would be, I'll wait.
Okay, you don't think it's worth you trying to call my helpline just in case it's on my end? Let's try it. If it breaks out again, try me one more time to get my number with you. Okay, well, if it drops out, try that one time. Yep.
Sorry about that, Kevin.
Where was I? So there's some changes to the Tech Ed and Family Consumer Science program that we talked about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the curriculum is changing, so it's not just the addition of some new modules, but the curriculum's changing for a couple of reasons. One is that the company that we currently use doesn't support it anymore, and the other is that the overall vision of it is changing, and it sounded to me like it's more group-focused and kind of a different style of teaching, which seemed to make a lot of sense to me. So there's some equipment that's needed to do that. There's some individual stations now. Probably many of you have been to those classrooms, but I gather the classrooms will be laid out differently, and that's what the equipment's needed for. So it seems to make sense to us, and those are the highlights that I wanted to cover. If there's anything else you wanted to point out, I'll throw it to you.
Excellent. No, I think you covered it very well, Kevin. Our changes in our technology education program and the family and consumer science program are definitely, we're looking as an opportunity due to their discontinuing the support for those programs. So, thank you.
Jordan, you have anything to add to what Kevin
No,
said?
we had commented that you wouldn't think that it costs what it does to replace a cafeteria table in a school, but from being opened and closed every day and sat on thousands of times a year, they wear out. So after 14 years, time to replace 2 tables.
I remember when they used to have to try and fix and re-weld all those tables in that little weld shop when it was the old middle school, before you moved out to where you are now. And they had weld spots upon weld spots upon weld spots. There's only so much you can do.
Yep. Yeah.
And your turn.
My turn. So I would simply, really quite honestly point to a lot of what Kevin and Jordan spoke about. You know, our focus and our goal, of course, is driven by our district logic model, you know, and our commitment to literacy, numeracy, technology, school climate, and safety. And, you know, a majority of our budget lines are really a per pupil expenditure on supplies. And that obviously fluctuates a little bit depending upon the projected enrollment for the upcoming school year. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you all might have at this time.
Questions? Comments?
I do have a question.
Go ahead, Brian.
The athletic transportation with the warrant article that is going to be up for the synthetic turf field, would the middle school be using that field as well, or would that only be for the high school?
My understanding would be that it would be primarily for the high school, with the exception of our track and field team, I believe currently participates in track and field at the high school because we don't have that kind of a facility at the middle school.
So that field would have no impact on the budget for the middle school?
Our transportation costs are based off of kind of like what one would say a second best scenario.
Yep.
So it would be like all of our teams going to the finals as the visitor for the entire duration. Yeah. So that would not have an effect there.
Did you want to say something, Matt? Oh, okay.
Just used to getting poised.
Stan?
Yes, Kevin.
So the track and field team, don't they take the regular buses to when they use, sometimes they train at the middle school, when they train at the track,
Correct.
they take a regular bus, so there's no additional cost, right? Because those
Correct.
buses go to the high school anyway, right?
Correct, yes. The buses come to the middle school for our dismissal process, and then they proceed to the high school. So we make arrangements with the bus company to find, I guess we'd say, the least populated buses with middle school students, and then we kind of load them up, and then they get off here at the high school and proceed to their practices.
Right.
I don't see any other hands going up. Boy, this is an easy, quick night. Carol, you got anything?
Nope, I'm all set.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Next up is the high school. And I would like to take this time to introduce the new principal of Merrimack High School, Sharon Putney, who many years ago used to teach here. You taught some of my kids. I would ask first that you introduce your lovely assistants on either side of you.
Good evening, everyone. To my left is Assistant Principal Pete Bergeron, and to my right, Assistant Principal Rich Zampieri.
Okay. And the liaisons for the high school, Kevin Bobbitt was the leader, Mackenzie Murphy, and Amanda Heidberger. And we all know that Mackenzie and Amanda could not be here tonight. So, would you like Kevin to give a report first, or would you like to start first?
Kevin, why don't you go ahead, please, if you don't mind?
They always throw it back to me.
You're doing a good job. You're on a roll.
Oh, well, thank you. So we met last week, early in the morning, and had good discussion. This budget is, again, straightforward and pretty similar to last year's in terms of what we saw. There were, the things of note, at least to myself, probably the most important one. I thought the laptops and calculator line, it's a significant number. I don't have the number in front of me, but seems well needed, and we need technology in our schools. It's not a big ask. It's a big school. What was it, 30 laptops, I think, which is one classroom. It's not excessive. It's not a laptop for all, but there are certain lessons that require or should be taught on a laptop. Kids need to know these things and be prepared for whatever they're going to do, whether it's college or go work somewhere. So it made sense. The calculators are the same old ones. The Texas Instruments, I forget the model number, but it's the one, probably the same model we all bought when we had to take calculus. But they're needed, and not every, some kids probably own their own, but not everybody can. They're still expensive, $150-ish, I think, $130. So I think a worthy investment, and it wasn't a whole lot of them either. So other things on here that were of note, wrestling mats, which are an investment for the athletic program, makes sense. And I did have a question, and I know we emailed some other questions, but I heard recently, and I don't know if it's true, that we hosted a wrestling meet maybe a week or so ago, and we actually had to borrow some mats to help with that.
Well, actually, we did host a meet here. It's our memorial wrestling match. We have it every year. We've had it for years. We use our own wrestling mat, but we also use other schools. If you go to any big wrestling invitational for most school districts, they're going to borrow other districts' mats. So they keep the flow of the meet going because it starts very early in the morning. And if you have children that have been wrestlers and you've gone to these meets, they're all-day affairs, just like the state track and field meet or swimming meets. But we need those other schools' mats, and that's a typical thing other schools will do when they host invitationals as well.
So a standard meet, you would just use our own equipment, but a larger invitational, you get together and have supporting schools. Is that how that
Correct.
works? Okay. All right. So needing a mat isn't because of that. It's unrelated.
Right.
It's just that our mat's wearing out and it needs to be
Yeah,
replaced.
we send it out too. We take care of our mats, and but it's time that we purchase a new one,
Right.
and we'll take care of it as we do every year with all of our sports equipment.
Great. The other thing I wanted to point out was that the transportation funds to off-site practices and games, and I think it's just important to talk about that. We mentioned it, I think, in the last meeting I was here, that I think it's important that the district provides transportation to events, especially home events. We have a lack of fields and practice space, so many of the practices are not at the high school. Soccer in particular, some of the practices are at Reed's Ferry, which is halfway across town. Some of the home games are not even in town, and I don't think it's fair or responsible to put it on the shoulders of upperclassmen to drive the other kids to those practices. Probably puts us, the district, at risk, as well as those kids at risk. So I think it's prudent that we have those line items in here to get our kids to those practices. So that's what I had. If you had anything else.
It's your turn.
I just wanted to mention that in the 1920 budget, most of the line items, you'll notice, have been either reduced or level funded. And we talked about some things that Kevin had mentioned, but most of the proposed increases are in the areas of athletics and mathematics, and the necessary supports needed in the school to provide differentiated instruction for the diverse learners that we have in a school this size.
We're done. I will just note for the record, Pat, the phone is disconnected again. So Carol's not on the phone. I am going to give one try to her other phone line as she requested. If this thing will register, but I don't think it will. So, we will, and you're all set, or you
I'm
have
all
anything
set.
else you would like to add?
I think that's it. Do you have anything else? Happy to answer questions. Yep, we're happy to answer any questions from the Budget Committee at this point.
Any questions from anybody? Yes, Lee?
Hello, I noticed a line item for 2 Real Care babies. Do we currently have any in the schools?
We do, and they're at an age where we needed to start looking to replace them, and it's real authentic learning. So we feel having those the real care babies will, certainly will help the class and the teacher in family consumer science.
Thank you. I just wanted to identify if that was a new product or a replacement of something that had pre-existed.
It's like it's an addition, because eventually the real care baby we have now, is getting at an age where we have to, start looking at the replacement, and we really we need to have those, for the class, and it would benefit our students.
Thank you for the clarification.
Try this again.
Hello again.
Okay, this is the last try. If this
Yep,
dies, we'll be done.
yep, okay.
We are on the high school. Carol, do you have any questions at all?
No, other than just, this is a general question for you. Is this thing being videotaped so I can watch it online to see everything I missed?
Of course it is. Merrimack TV is alive and well.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll watch it on TV to pick up the parts I missed.
Okay. And no questions or comments? Well, thank you all. This is a
Thank
quick
you.
night.
Thank you.
Carol, I hate to do this to you, but our next thing on our agenda is to do minutes, and I'm not doing a roll call vote for minutes unless I absolutely have to.
No.
So I'm going to say
No,
thank
I
you
can't
very,
really blame you.
I say thank you very much for enduring, and we will be in touch.
Okay, talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We are on to minutes approval. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of November 27th? Made by Kevin. Do I have a second? Seconded by David. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Right, yeah, you got to abstain because you weren't here. 6:01. My mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Lee has to abstain. He wasn't a member then. Yeah, it's a majority here. As long as we got a majority of people voting, which is 7. I mean, I can get Carol back on the phone, we can do a roll call vote.
We're going to call Ginger.
Ginger kept hanging up.
Maybe that was it.
That's my work.
The cat was hitting the disconnect button.
Working theory is the cat kept saying.
I'll tell her that. Next up are the minutes of December 11th. I have a motion by David. Do I have a second? Second by Gillian. Do we have any corrections, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, and yes, you can vote for it because you were a member before the end of the meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, or raise your hand. Okay. Opposed? Abstaining? 601. We now move on to public participation. Before we get to the public participation, do the superintendent or the assistant superintendents have anything they would like to say to us this evening? And everybody else is disguised as a blue seat. I will close public participation. Under other, please make sure that if you are assigned a liaison assignment for the items coming up next week, which include district-wide food service, technology and library media maintenance, and student services, that you get your liaison assignment completed. If you cannot make it, please let me know. Also, this evening, you were handed out a members-only list. Please double-check it. If it is not correct, please let Pat know what the changes are. Does anybody have any questions at all or other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by, who are you? Oh, yeah, Jordan. Do I have a second? Seconded by David. Not debatable. All those in favor? Aye. I don't see any nays. We are adjourned. Thank you. Our next meeting is next Tuesday, January 29th, 7 o'clock in this room. Have a good night, everybody, and please be safe.